guys, Justin Pickett back with you for another video. Just wanted to chat to you today about investing in a self-managed super fund. This is an effective method to really kind of go in on investing in property if you want to do that. So you probably see most people invest in their personal names and they use equity and they might use cash. But another avenue, which is a little bit uncommon but is useful, is potentially going for a self-managed super fund. So a couple of things with self-managed super fund right off the bat is you're using your superannuation. So you might have 50, 100, 200,000, 300,000, whatever the case is. And you can see that most of your investments are in the share markets or those type of things which your super fund has the control over, and you can put in high, low risk, medium categories, whatever you prefer, but you don't necessarily have as much control over what you might have potentially in a self-managed super fund. Now again, this isn't financial advice, it's just my personal opinion, and obviously with clients that I deal with that want to build investment property portfolios, and one avenue they have been using is a self-managed super fund. So check what your super offers you. If it's working for you, fantastic. I know there's some older schemes out there that have really good options and things available, but some of our newer schemes might be a bit limited because those policies have certainly changed. But for an investor who might want to really grow their portfolio, and for me personally, I'm actually setting one up at the moment and hoping to get my 10th property within the super. It is an effective method. So a couple of key things to know with superannuation is that you need to do 20% deposits generally as a minimum. Previously it used to be about 30%, but some lenders have come in with a 20% deposit, which is required in order to kind of get a property within your self-managed super fund. Another thing as well is the interest rates are generally a little bit higher than your standard residential stuff. So they were kind of at about 6-7%. Now they've kind of come down to like 4%, low 4%, mid to 4%, which is still pretty decent for a self-managed super fund, but the rates are a bit higher there. The process of setting up a self-managed super fund can take anywhere from about 6 to 8 weeks. You've got to get approved by the ATO, and there is a bit of a process involved. We can get you in touch with some contacts who will be able to point you in the right direction and all those type of things. Talk to the ATO, get that all submitted for you. But look, hopefully once it's all submitted and approved, then you can start using your own self-managed super money and put it in your self-managed super fund to make your next move on those type of things. So those guys can also help you with other strategies, whether that's outside of property, whatever the case is. But if you do want to kind of take control of your own super, it is something you can look at. So the process does take a little bit of time. It does need to be approved. The costs, they are in the thousands, couple of thousand, maybe even more, 3, 4, 5,000, just depending on who you go with and what work is required. So there's a bit of work involved and a bit of cost there as well. And the next thing there too is that you'll have a management cost generally if you're having a fund look after it for you. So there are definitely associated costs. So when you're purchasing an asset, in that you do want to make sure that the numbers look pretty solid there if you've got the capabilities to do so. Now, if we look at property specifically, how the banks would be assessing is that if you did want to do a 20% deposit, what they're assessing you on is your super contributions from your employer and the rental income received from the investment property if you were going to purchase property. So they're kind of the two main things, which can really help where we do see investors and things like that might be tapping out with their serviceability, or no big bank's going to lend to them in their personal name. But the super, because it's only looking at those things and not their kind of personal assets and liabilities, yes, they're going to look at your credit conduct to make sure you meet your loans, but because it's kind of somewhat separate or it's under the super, they're only assessing you on that, which can really help with your serviceability and getting you into the next property. So that's obviously one thing there as well. Now, you can't extract equity from the properties that you buy in super, which is another really big one. So if you buy a property and you put $80,000 of your superannuation and that property goes up $50,000 or $100,000, you can't then pull that equity out like what you might do in your personal name, and you might see what Eddie does on that side of things. These are definitely more of a set and forget type of mentality, that if you were to sell this property in the future potentially, or anything like that, or if there's any gains, that it's obviously staying within the super fund. So that is something to be mindful of, but it is, I suppose, just another effective method where if you had 20 properties in your personal name and 3 in your super, there's kind of 23 properties in total which are kind of working towards your financial future and your nest egg for when you're kind of ready to retire or those type of things. So in terms of minimum requirements, look, I have helped people as low as kind of $60,000 with about 60,000 in there, but it was very, very tight. Like 60,000 income, 60,000 in their super. But once you kind of take out fees and obviously property prices are increasing, the more you can have, the better. I generally am kind of saying that if I'm going to go to a bank, sometimes they might want to see, there's some leftover net liquidity in there as well. So the more capital you can kind of have within your super, I know my business partner Eddie might be saying, you know, kind of around that kind of 60,000 minimum if he's working with investors. I might say a little bit more just to be safe, but you know, if you're thinking about self-managed super fund, just have to look at your numbers and your scenario to make sure it works, and also look at the numbers of the deal on that property to see if it can work as well. So if you are thinking of self-managed super fund, definitely have a chat with us before setting up. It's definitely a process. We need to have a look at your servicing, make sure it's something that's viable for you, because there are some fees in there. But you know, if you've got a couple $100,000 in super and it's not doing much, or you want to change and go all in on property, there are some guys that can help you do that. And yeah, it is just a kind of another effective way for you to build your portfolio, as long as it's kind of structured correctly and the assets that you're purchasing are going to be in line with your goals and long-term vision. So any questions on that, if you need to get in touch with the right people, we'll discuss that any further. Certainly feel free to get in touch, and look forward to hopefully working with you soon. Thanks very much.